Tim Burton has made some incredible films, and across of a lot of different genres, but one thing stays the same throughout all of them, and it's his signature style. Now, Ed Wood probably strays away the most out of any of his films, but it still stays true to him. But in today's video, I'm going to be looking at the cinematography and how it stays authentic to the story. I'll be looking at how he crafted the look, what he and Stefan Czapsky did to create the lighting style, as well as the equipment they used. So let's start by dissecting the look, which starts with influence, which seems to be a sort of loose film noir. And I say loose because there are silhouettes, shadows, depth in the lighting, smoke, haze, but it's nowhere near as significant as if it were purely a film noir inspired film. But let's dig a little deeper. What actually makes a film noir film noir? Well, excluding the story, which is obviously a huge part of it, they usually tend to follow the classic 3-point lighting, which is exactly that. You have a key light, a fill light, and a backlight, and then you would usually shoot from the shadow side for a bit of depth. They also tended to use wider and more natural lens lengths, and I can't ever recall seeing a telephoto shot, as well as extreme angles and actually a rather shallow focus for the time. However, in comparison to 50s films, which is around when the film was set, I can't help but see huge influence cinematically, more from the noir side, but also in films like Anatomy of a Murder. I'd say more films like Touch of Evil and The Third Man though, which are a couple of films from Orson Welles, and here we see a lot in the camera angles and placement, and whilst he was an influence for pretty much everybody, we can definitely see here that it was quite distinctive, especially in The Third Man. Now, obviously this is a film about Ed Wood, so it would make sense for there to be some sort of inspiration in this from him, and there is, and not just in the remakes of his films. So I'm going to use Plan 9 from Outer Space as an example, as it's the only Ed Wood film that I've seen, but it also seems to be the most popular. Now, the cinematography seems pretty simple. It's full of two shots, we don't usually stray away from eye level, and they like to stay quite static. Whilst looking at Ed Wood, there's a lot more variation in the camera placement, but we still see the staples of more static shots, as well as the lighting and whatnot, but I'll get onto that in a minute. I mean, we could also attribute all of these to the 50s style that they were after, but I couldn't help but correlate the two films. I mean, obviously the costumes, hair, score, production design, even the font in the title sequence all add to the authenticity of the 50s look, and the cinematography wouldn't be the same without all of them. Now, I couldn't leave this segment without mentioning another obvious inspiration behind the look, which is Gothic. But why does Burton like Gothic? I think partly it comes from the environment where I was born. The south of California is very colourful and shining, and I had to compensate that. I tried to do things not too dark because I like the combination of dark and light, humour and sadness. I never feel one of them alone, they always come together. Back to the noir style that I just touched on though, a lot of it lies on the use of lighting, the deep shadows, and all of that is very prominent in Ed Wood. To start though, let's talk about the shadows, which is made using hard light and blinds, or something made to look like blinds. And I think this is a great way to not only imply something in the story, but it also adds a bit of depth to your image, makes it a bit more interesting. And you can use this in a number of ways. I mean, I've been on sets where we've held plants in front of lights to create that look, and it looks great. Now, my mind has gone blank on the name of this style of light, and I can't find it on Google, so if you know, please let me know below. Now, volumetric beams, these light beams that we see, also play a huge part in the suggesting themes aspect. I mean, it's really impossible to tell what Burton or Czapsky's true intentions were, but I know they allow them to lead our eyes. They can also add to this mysterious aesthetic that just appears with this style of light, but they also look pretty cool. To quickly touch on haze and smoke though, it's used in this, and it's used in pretty much every film, but here the choice to use it is a bit more difficult, because with noir cinematography comes smoke, but you don't want to exaggerate it, especially if it's a more emotional scene. Now, I know in painting it's called chiaroscuro, and I'm not sure if there's a different name for it in cinematography, but it's again pretty prominent here. In simple terms though, it's high contrast lighting, where there's a stark difference between light and dark, and it rose to prominence in the film noir era. It's again a tool that can be used to subtly imply something, whether that's darkness in a character or something a little less generic. When it comes to recreating Ed Wood's films though, they are pretty reminiscent of his actual films. Inside 3-point lighting, outside natural light, really just B-movie cinematography from that time. Nothing really special, and luckily we only get to that for the movie scenes in Ed Wood. I think overall the lighting style is mainly just a lot of influence merged together into something that helps tell the story, which I guess is most films, but here it feels a bit more intentional. Everything from the deep shadows to the haze, how the sets look, but it all just works so well. When it comes to photographing the film, Czapsky opted to go with the Panavision Panaflex Gold 2, the newest camera Panavision had to offer at the time of shooting. It boasted the ability to sync sound, meaning that it was rather quiet, a bright viewfinder, the ability to run up to 40 FPS if necessary, and an upgraded movement. You can also still rent one from Panavision today if you wanted to. As for the lenses, you can't go wrong with Panavision's Primos, as they are unparalleled when it comes to having a pristine image quality, or at least they were when they were first released. They also offer low veiling glare and accurate colour reproduction, which probably wasn't as important here. When it comes to the stock, it was always going to be Kodak, with them going with the Eastman Plus X 5231, a 35mm black and white film stock. Now, when asked about why he chose to shoot in black and white, Burton said, "When we began doing makeup tests with Martin Landau, me and makeup artist Rick Bader asked ourselves, what was the colour of Bela Lugosi's eyes? I never saw him and no one's ever seen colour images of Lugosi. Him, Vampira, Thor Johnson are black and white icons. It was such a simple decision without any aesthetic pretension. It just seemed right." Now usually I'd look into why the DP or director opted for such equipment, but as I can't find any interviews on the matter and I don't like to speculate, I'm just going to leave it here. So what do I mean by authenticity in cinematography? Well, mainly the fact that Burton and Czapsky stayed true to the 50s era of cinematography, borrowing aspects from Wells' different noir films, Ed Wood, and creating a genuine feeling environment. It does feel like we are watching a film from the 50s, well, with Bill Murray, Sarah Jessica Parker and Johnny Depp. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, you know what to do if you did. If you have a recommendation for an analysis, leave it down below. Thanks so much for watching and maybe I'll see you next time. Bye!